Her footsteps echoed twice. The first echo made sense. The cabin had always done that in winter. Cold air sharpened sound, tightened it. The wooden floorboards beneath Claire's boots gave off a hollow knock that traveled down the narrow hallway and returned a split second later, softened by doors and old pine walls. Knock, knock, normal. But tonight, knock, knock, knock. The third sound came exactly half a second after the second. Not softer, not blurred. Identical. Claire stopped walking. The overhead light hummed faintly, casting a pale yellow cone that barely reached the living room. The fireplace had burned down to embers. Beyond the curtained windows, snow pressed against the glass in a thick white silence. She listened. The cabin listened back. Nothing moved. No wind against the eaves. No settling creak from the rafters. Just her breathing. Slow. Controlled. "It's the hallway," she whispered. Her voice traveled outward and returned once. Only once. She took another step. Knock, knock, knock. The spacing was precise, like someone counting behind her. Half a second. Not random. Measured. Claire turned slowly. The hallway stretched empty. The guest room door stood half open. The bathroom door was shut. The coat rack at the far end cast long, thin shadows that trembled faintly in the low light. She walked again, slower this time. Knock, knock, knock. The third echo adjusted perfectly to her pace. When she shortened her stride, it shortened. When she lengthened it, it lengthened. But always, half a second late. Her chest tightened. She bent down and pressed her palm flat against the wooden floor. Cold. Still. No vibration beneath. She stood abruptly and stepped hard. Knock, knock. Then, the third sound arrived a fraction sooner this time. Her stomach dropped. "You're imagining it," she said aloud. The cabin absorbed her words. Silence returned. But the silence felt wrong now. Too complete. As if something had stepped into it and was holding it in place. Claire moved toward the kitchen, telling herself she needed water. The open floor plan meant the sound should disperse more easily here. She stepped off the rug and onto bare wood. Knock, knock, knock. The third sound didn't bounce from the hallway anymore. Came from behind her shoulder. Close. She spun around. Nothing. The living room stood exactly as it had: couch, coffee table, dying fire. The lamp beside the armchair flickered once, briefly dimming before steadying again. She swallowed. "Okay," she muttered. "Test." She stomped twice in quick succession. Knock knock, knock knock, knock knock. Her breathing turned shallow. The third pattern mirrored the rhythm exactly. She took 3 quick steps. Knock knock knock, knock knock knock, knock knock knock. It wasn't echo. It was rehearsal. The realization settled into her bones like cold water. She walked backward slowly. The second echo followed. Half a second late. She stopped abruptly. The third step arrived anyway. Knock. Alone. Claire's throat tightened. That wasn't me. The overhead light flickered again, longer this time. The edges of the room darkened, as if the walls had leaned inward. The fireplace ember popped softly. Pop, pop, pop. 3. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She grabbed her phone from the counter and called Mark. It rang once, twice, 3 times. He answered on the 4th. "Hey," he said sleepily. "Everything okay?" "I'm hearing something." "What kind of something?" "My footsteps. They echo twice." A pause. "It's an old cabin, Claire." "No," she whispered. "It's following me." Silence on the line. Then a faint crackle. "Claire," Mark said. "You're breaking up." She turned toward the hallway again. At the far end, the coat rack looked different. The shadow didn't match the hooks anymore. It had too many limbs. She blinked. The shadow corrected itself. "You're tired," Mark continued. "You've been alone there 3 days. It's just acoustics." She stepped forward. "Knock, knock, knock." Mark's voice overlapped the third sound. "What was that?" "I didn't." She stopped. The echo didn't. "Knock, It landed exactly half a second later. Mark inhaled sharply. Claire. It moved without me. The lights flickered violently. For a moment, the cabin plunged into darkness. In that darkness, she heard footsteps walking toward her. Measured, unhurried. Knock, knock, knock. The delay was shorter now. A quarter second. Then less. The lights snapped back on. The hallway was longer. It hadn't been that long before. The guest room door was farther away. The bathroom door slightly ajar. And the coat rack, gone. Her phone slipped from her hand, clattering against the floor. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The third sound felt close enough to brush her ankle. She backed away. The living room seemed narrower now. Furniture shifted subtly closer together. The ceiling lower. The cabin was compressing around her. No, she breathed. She ran toward the front door. Knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 knock. The third pattern almost overlapped her own. The delay nearly gone. She reached the door and grabbed the handle. It didn't turn. She twisted harder. The door remained fixed. Behind her, a single step. Knock. She hadn't moved. Her breath fogged faintly in the cold air. Slowly, she turned. Halfway down the hallway, she stood. Not as a shadow. Not a reflection. A second Claire. Same sweater. Same bare feet. Same wide, terrified eyes. But the second Claire stood slightly angled. As if she were a half-second ahead in a different frame of time. The double lifted its foot. Claire's body lifted hers involuntarily. She gasped. The double set its foot down. Claire's followed. Half a second later, she tried to resist. Her muscles trembled violently, but her body obeyed the movement in front of her. Not the other way around. The echo had shifted. She wasn't being followed. She was following. The second Claire began walking down the hallway. Claire's body mirrored the motion with that dreadful delay. Knock, knock. The delay shrank further. The two sounds nearly fused. The hallway stretched impossibly long as they moved. Doors multiplied along its sides. Shadows pooled in corners that hadn't existed before. Each step revealed flashes along the walls. Images rippling through the wood grain. Memories. Her first night in the cabin. The argument she'd had with Mark before leaving. The text she never answered. Her mother's voice from years ago. You always follow, Claire. The double paused at the bathroom door. Claire's body stopped half a second later. The door creaked open. Inside, darkness, deep and thick. The double stepped into it. Claire's body followed. Half a second behind. The bathroom was too large inside. The walls stretched away into blackness. The mirror above the sink reflected not one, but countless Claires, each delayed by a fraction of a second. An infinite cascade of echoes. The double turned to face her and smiled. You're late, it said softly. The voice was hers, but steadier, more certain. Claire tried to speak. Her lips parted, but the sound came half a second after the double's mouth moved. She was the echo now. The cabin lights snapped off. Darkness swallowed everything. For a moment, silence. Then, knock, knock. A single pair of footsteps moved confidently down the hallway, and somewhere behind it, half a second later, another followed. The house had one more room than she remembered. Clara paused at the top of the stairs, her hand hovering over the railing. The house smelled of old wood and wax polish, familiar yet faintly off, like a photograph printed too many times. Dust motes hung in the afternoon sunlight that spilled unevenly through the half-open curtains. She had been home for less than an hour and already felt the subtle dissonance gnawing at her. She'd grown up here, in this modest two-story rental she inherited after her aunt's passing. Every floorboard, every crooked doorframe, every squeak of the stairs had been memorized, or so she thought. Turning into the hallway that led to the bedrooms, she noticed it immediately. A door she didn't remember. It was perfectly aligned with the hall, exactly opposite the linen closet. Its frame painted the same eggshell white, the doorknob glinting faintly in the sun. Clara blinked. No, that door had never been there. She counted the rooms in her mind. Bedroom, office, guest room, bathroom. That was it. This made 5. The door seemed quiet, too quiet. Even for a closed interior door, there was no draft, no creak of hinges, no hint of what lay behind it. The paint looked pristine. The floor in front of it was perfectly clean, as if it had never been walked upon. The carpet, new. Her fingers itched. She wanted to touch it, and yet, a part of her knew she shouldn't. She reached for the knob. The metal was cold, unnaturally so. The moment her palm made contact, a faint ripple ran through the hallway, as if the air itself had drawn in a deep breath. Clara drew back. Her chest tightened. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. It wasn't just the door. The house itself seemed to hold its silence differently here, compressing the space around her. She remembered the layout perfectly, or thought she did, but now the ceiling seemed slightly higher, the hallway fractionally longer. She tried to dismiss it. Memory isn't perfect. Maybe she had simply forgotten. And yet, as she turned toward the kitchen to make tea, a faint scent of lavender reached her, like Aunt Lorraine's favorite sachets, but sharper, almost metallic. The hairs on her neck prickled. Later, she told herself she'd been imagining things. The blue-gray light of evening bled through the curtains, and the house grew warmer, softer, more ordinary. She heard it then. A sound. Not a creak, not a whisper, but a quiet shuffle. The door. It was subtle, a movement in the air around it, almost imperceptible. She froze. Her heartbeat thumped in her ears. And then she realized the door had shifted, just slightly, as if leaning toward her, inviting her gaze. Clara stepped forward. Her hand trembled as she turned the knob. The room beyond was perfect. Not a bedroom, not an office, not a study she'd ever used. The walls were immaculate, smooth and white, without a single blemish. The carpet was plush, deep gray, untouched. A single window looked out onto the backyard, but the view was slightly skewed. The trees appeared taller, the fence farther away, the garden somehow larger than she remembered. The air smelled faintly of old paper and something floral, a mixture she couldn't place. She stepped inside. Her feet sank slightly into the carpet. Each step echoed softly, unnaturally, like the room itself was listening. She glanced around. No furniture, no markings, not a single object. Just clean, calm emptiness. And then the room breathed. The walls seemed to pulse, imperceptibly at first. A faint pressure pushed at her temples, and she realized with a cold certainty that the space was reacting to her. Clara thought of her childhood. Memories of birthday parties, arguments with her aunt, afternoons spent reading in the office upstairs. She had thought she'd remembered them all perfectly. The room shifted, subtly. Images coalesced in the white walls. A desk with her tiny hands writing in a notebook, her reflection in a mirror, Aunt Lorraine smiling. Each memory stretched and twisted, altered just slightly, reshaped by the room. Her pulse raced. She backed up, pressed herself against the doorframe. The hallway looked shorter, the ceiling lower. The familiar geometry of the house was bending, rearranging itself around the 5th room. She could hear her own breathing echoing back at her, slightly delayed. Half a second. The echo wasn't hers. Her stomach sank. She reached out, trembling, to touch the wall. And as her fingers brushed the surface, a flood of sensations hit her. She was falling through her own memories, reliving moments she hadn't wanted to remember. Embarrassments, small betrayals, secrets she had buried even from herself. The room hummed, not audibly but inside her mind. It was learning her, copying her, recording her. And then she saw it. Her reflection in the window, but wrong. Too symmetrical, too still. Smiling faintly, though she was not. The eyes looked at her with intimate knowledge. Clara stumbled back. The walls pulsed more aggressively. The carpet stretched slightly underfoot, warping space, elongating the room. Every step she took was mirrored by a soft thump behind her. She dared a glance. The fifth room had grown longer than it should, endless, folding itself inward, recursive. The reflection stepped forward. Half a second before she did. She gasped, tried to flee, but her feet moved of their own accord, replicating the mirrored movements. The room was taking her, rehearsing her. Her identity was becoming another echo inside its walls. She screamed. The sound ricocheted, not in the hallway, not in the room, but inside herself, layered, delayed, doubled. When she closed her eyes and opened them again, the door was gone. The hallway ended in a blank wall where she had entered. The house felt intact, ordinary, familiar. Her reflection stared back at her from a window across the hall. And for a brief moment, she realized it wasn't her reflection. It was smiling, and the fifth room waited. Silent, empty, perfect, waiting to remember her. Clara backed away, heart hammering, and the house seemed to whisper with every floorboard. There is always one more room. And somewhere just beyond perception, the floorboards shifted slightly. Another door waiting to appear. Another echo of herself, rehearsing, patient, inevitable.